Okay, I am super excited about this next lesson or two. My goal here is that by the end, you will be saying to yourself, oh, that's how that works. Because this is a subject that is often glossed over with just a little explanation, and I wanted to really break it down and make sure you understand. Fair warning, I am going to be doing a lot of talking. So let's learn about protocols and delegates. All right, so let's start with delegates. You have probably heard this word in your day-to-day life at some point. A boss might delegate a task to an employee. A parent might delegate a task to a child. So delegation is, in other words, to pass off a task to be completed by someone else. In this case, it is being used as a verb. It can also be used as a noun, such as a person sent or authorized to represent another, in particular, an elected representative sent to a conference. So with regards to programming and Swift, the Apple docs say that delegation is a design pattern that enables a class or structure to hand off or delegate some of its responsibilities to an instance of another type. Okay, so from our demo app here, you might be able to start connecting some dots. Delegation is a design pattern that enables a class to hand off some responsibilities to another class. Can you see how that might be working here? We have our second VC, our login VC, that when we push done, is sending back to the home VC the string that we entered, and the home VC then does something with it. So in this case, the login VC is delegating to the home VC the responsibility of doing something with the text entered when we press done. All right, so now let's talk about what a protocol is. This is also a word you have probably heard used in real life. When someone says they followed protocol, they are saying that they followed a set of rules that explain the correct conduct and procedures to be followed in specific situations. Now let's look at the Apple definition. A protocol defines a blueprint of methods, properties, and other requirements that suit a particular task or piece of functionality. The protocol can then be adopted by a class, structure, or enumeration to provide an actual implementation of those requirements. Any type that satisfies the requirements of a protocol is said to conform to that protocol. So a protocol is a set of methods, properties, and requirements that tells another class what they need to implement. Now it's important to know that a protocol doesn't tell the delegated class what to do with the information that is delegated to them. Now before we write any code, I know I've already been talking for a while, but I want to give you an analogy, a parable if you will, that I hope will cement these concepts. There once was a man named Jack. He went to work for a woman named Jill. When Jack arrived, Jill gave him a binder of procedures with a bunch of information about what resources he would be given under certain circumstances. After looking through them briefly, Jack goes, "Yeah, I can do this," and he gives Jill his phone number so that she can contact him when she needs him. Well, soon Jack gets a phone call from Jill and she says, "Quick, turn to page 4, Article A. This thing just happened and here's the information you need." And then she hangs up. So Jack quickly turns to page 4, Article A, and sees that, indeed, he has the information from Jill that the procedure says he needs, but it doesn't actually tell him what to do with that information. But that's okay. Jack's mama didn't raise no dummy. He goes ahead and takes the information and gets to work implementing a solution for the company, and they lived happily ever after. Now you might already be able to guess some of the parallels here. Jill is the delegator. Jack is the delegate. That binder of information and procedures is the protocol. And when Jack accepts it, he is conforming to the protocol in programming jargon. There are a few other details to the story that will become apparent once we write some code that I will point out as we go along. So let's write some code and make the connection between that analogy and the code that we are going to write, all right? First thing we need to do is write our protocol. And we can do that in its own file or outside of the class declaration of either of our VCs. So when you put code outside of the class declaration, it becomes its own class or a global variable. So just to remove any confusion here, let's go ahead and give it its own file. I'm going to say new file, And this is just going to be a Swift file, and we're going to say next. Okay, and we're going to call this login complete delegate. I'm going to say create. And then we're going to create our protocol, which is a set of instructions and methods. And we do that by just saying protocol, and then we give it a name. And we're going to name it login complete delegate, okay? And it's common practice to end your protocol names with delegate, okay? And then here we have our requirements. So if you remember from our demo app, what we are doing is we are delegating back to the home VC what to do when a user has been created. So to that end, the way that we do that is we declare a function. We say func, and we'll give it a name. We'll say user created, okay? And then also we can pass information back to the delegate, right? So if you recall in our example, in our analogy, when Jill called Jack, she did so with some information that would be required for him to do his job. So we're going to pass back a name of type string. Great, so now we have a set of instructions, our protocol, and we can jump back into our home VC. All right, so now that we have our protocol, we need our delegate, our home VC, to implement that delegate. And the way to do that is right here after the colon and the UI view controller, we do a comma, and then we type out the name of the protocol, which is login complete delegate. Okay, so now we have implemented it, and you'll see this error here. It says type home VC does not conform to protocol login complete delegate. And we can conform to it by either starting to type it out. So we can say user created, and then we could press enter, and that will fill out the protocol method for us. Or you could click on the error here and it will say, do you want to add protocol stubs? And we say fix. And that will put the required methods in for us. All right, so going back to our analogy with Jack and Jill, this is analogous to Jill giving Jack the set of instructions, which is the protocol. And then by implementing the methods and requirements of that protocol, which if we look back here, is that they are required to implement this function, user created. Then by doing so, they are conforming to the protocol. So our home VC delegate is conforming to all of the requirements of the login complete delegate. Now looking at our method here, we receive a name of type string. And just like with Jack, when he received that phone call from Jill, he received some information, but he wasn't told what to do with it. And that is important to understand and know about protocols, is that it defines the requirements and the methods that a delegate must implement, but doesn't say what to do with that information. That's up to the delegate. So what we want to do is we want to change the username label text to whatever is passed from this method. So we're going to say username label.text is equal to name. So now when the user types into something in the second VC text field and presses done, then this should update. Well, not yet. We have to do a little bit more work with the protocol and delegates. Okay, so we're almost done in our home VC. Let's go check out our login vc.swift, okay? So this is Jack. Now we're going to Jill, the delegator. So here in our delegator class, what we need is a reference to our delegate. So I'm going to create a variable here called delegate. I'm going to say var delegate of type login complete delegate. And it is best practice to make a delegate optional here. So this is like Jack's contact information in Jill's phone. She has a way of contacting him, a reference to him. So this is going to be our reference to our home VC, which is implementing the login complete delegate. And then down here in done clicked, all we need to do is say delegate dot user created name. So we are calling the method inside of our login complete delegate protocol. I'm going to drag this up here. And then we can pass into it the username entry text. So I'm going to say username entry text dot text. Okay, and so that's optional. So I'm going to just give it a default value. So this is an awesome, easy way of handling optionals. You can say take this value. If it's nil, then we're going to provide a default value, which we will say no name. Okay, so saying delegate user created, this is kind of like Jill picking up her phone and calling Jack and passing to him the information that he needs. In essence, we are sending a message back to the delegate saying something has happened and here's what you need to do whatever you need to do. Alrighty, so it seems like that should do it, right? We have created a protocol. Our delegate class is implementing and conforming to the protocol. Our delegator class has a reference to the delegate class and is calling the delegate method when we press done. So seems like we've covered all the aspects of our parable, right? So let's run this and see. Spoiler alert, it's not going to work, but I wanted to show you this because this is probably the most common thing people forget when working with protocols and delegates, okay? So we have our app here and we say login and we put in some information here, a name, and then we press done. And nothing happened, nothing got updated over here. So the problem is that even though in the login VC, we have this variable for the delegate, and we are calling the method for the delegate, the value for delegate has never been set. We have never said that home VC will be the delegate for login VC. In other words, Jack hasn't actually agreed to be Jill's delegate yet. So I may have fudged a little here in our example earlier when I said that creating this variable here is like Jill having Jack's phone number. It's actually more like Jill creating a contact in her phone with Jack's name, but when she goes to call that number, nothing happens because she doesn't actually have Jack's number yet. That is essentially what is happening here when we press done. We're trying to call Jack, but nothing is happening because we don't even have his number. So we need to get Jill Jack's number, or in other words, we need to actually assign this delegate's login complete delegate value to be the home VC, okay? So we need the home VC to set itself as the delegate. So we need to be able to get a reference to the login VC from the home VC so we can access that delegate variable. And the way to do that is in a method called prepare for segue. So start typing out prepare for, and this is the one we want right here. This says that it notifies the view controller that a segue is about to be performed. Now I'm going to go into depth on prepare for segue in just a couple lessons, but for right now, what you need to know is that this method is called right before we go from one view controller to another. And here in this method, we have access to the segue, okay? And if we check out our storyboard, this is our segue right here. We are going from our home VC to our login VC. So the login VC is the destination of this segue, and we can access the destination property from this segue. And by extension, the delegate property of the destination view controller. So the way to do that is we're going to use an if-let statement, and we're going to say if-let destination is equal to, and we get the segue dot destination. So this is just a generic view controller as the destination. So we need to cast it as a login VC, which is the view controller class for the destination that the segue is going to. So now we have the destination view controller in the form of login VC. So now we can actually give Jill Jack's number, or in other words, assign the home VC to be the delegate for the login VC. And so we can say destination.delegate. So we're getting this variable, which is this variable in the login VC in the delegator. And so we're going to say destination.delegate is equal to self. So we are setting this VC, home VC, to be the delegate of the login VC, so that now when we make this call here, The home VC is actually listening and will respond when user created is called. So let's run this and make sure it's working as expected now. All right, gonna press login, put in a name and say done, and there we go. Now it's working because the home VC has set itself to be the delegate for login VC. All right, perfect. So if you are working with a protocol and delegate and you're clicking and nothing seems to be happening, remember this, that you should go and make sure that you actually set the delegate. All right, so let's recap. Step 1 is write the protocol, which we have done right here. You say protocol, give it a name, end it with delegate, and then provide any of the methods that you want it to perform. And there's no limit here. You can have as many of these as you want. Step 2 is implement the protocol, which we have done here, and then conform to it right here. And then in the delegator class, we have a variable that holds reference to our delegate. And when you need to call it, you call it like that. Step 4, make sure that you have set the delegate to self. Okay, so I hope that was illuminating and you were able to understand. If things are still a little hazy, we are going to go through more examples of delegates and protocols in the next videos, so that should help fix in your mind this concept. So in the next lesson, we are going to be back inside of our Good Eaton's app and working more with our table views, all right? So I hope you're excited for that, and I'll see you then.